Trust. We throw that word around in literally every organization, right? But honestly, it usually gets treated as this vague, unquantifiable feeling. Well, in this explainer, we're completely changing how we look at that. We are going to frame trust exactly as it should be seen, as a measurable, operational capacity within your organizational ecosystem. You see, when we just treat trust as a mood or some abstract concept, we completely miss its true function. It's actually the structural architecture that supports true excellence and continuous evolution. And if that architecture is weak, yeah, the entire structure of the organization is compromised.
So the very foundation of this architecture, it's professional humility. Now, I know humility is completely misunderstood in a lot of corporate spaces. It's really not about shrinking yourself or self-erasure. It's actually about becoming secure enough that you no longer need to make yourself bigger. Think about what this looks like in everyday practice. A leader who doesn't feel the need to inflate their presence, they don't dominate every single meeting, they definitely don't need to have the last word just to prove their value. Expanding your unique potential through brave curiosity, it just completely transforms leadership dynamics. It creates this amazing environment where human relations thrive, simply because ego isn't sucking up all the oxygen in the room. You're actually leaving space for others to actively contribute.
And the real-world impact of that kind of secure presence? It's immediate. Just imagine a typical boardroom in a low-trust environment. You know the one. A new initiative is proposed, and everyone just nods in agreement. But it's a total illusion. Silence often masks fear, leading to what we call information poverty. People in that room know the project has fatal flaws, but they stay completely quiet because speaking up, it's just too dangerous. That crucial information isn't moving. Now, contrast that with the absolute relief of strategic clarity in a high-trust environment. Here, information moves freely. You cultivate this profound situational awareness because people aren't wasting all their energy protecting themselves from each other. They're focused entirely on doing the actual work and doing it well.
Which brings us to a really essential question. Can people safely tell us something we do not want to hear? Take a second and really think about that. What actually happens when an employee realizes an upcoming product launch is going to fail? Do they rush to tell you, or do they bury it? If bad news makes the messenger a target, well, the flow of vital information completely stops. If the truth is just too expensive for your team to share internally, the company's absolutely going to pay the ultimate price when that failure finally goes public. So to ensure the truth is never too expensive to share, we have to look closely at the systems that shape our environments. Building a high-trust ecosystem relies heavily on cultivating specific cultural conditions. We have to grant the permission to not know, the permission to question, to admit mistakes, and to ask for help, all held together by a strong expectation of repair. And look, these aren't just empty corporate buzzwords. Think of them as this beautiful, interconnected ecosystem of behaviors. Working together, they drive capacity, build absolute excellence, and allow for continuous evolution within your team.
Let's see how this actually builds, starting with the permission to not know. Notice how interpersonal trust instantly deepens when the penalty for uncertainty is completely removed. In cultures where people are expected to always magically have the answer, they're basically incentivized to lie, to bluff, or to hide critical data. But when we don't punish someone for simply saying, "I don't know," guess what happens? Better, far more accurate information is allowed to enter the room. We're framing not knowing not as a failure, but as the perfect launch pad for brave curiosity and collective problem solving. And this naturally leads right into the permission to question. Now, this is where organizational alignment often meets some serious resistance. Insecure leaders frequently view respectful disagreement as a personal threat, or maybe a sign of insubordination. But we really need to reframe that entirely. Respectful disagreement isn't a threat, it's a profound contribution. When questioning is welcomed as a vital act of strategic stewardship, team alignment actually strengthens. You're literally inviting your team to pressure test ideas, making sure that only the most robust strategies survive.
Okay, so what happens when things inevitably go off track? Because they will. Having the permission to admit mistakes means we surface problems early. Imagine a scenario where a junior developer accidentally deletes a crucial line of code. If they're terrified of being fired, they might try to secretly fix it, probably making it way worse, or they just hide it until the entire system crashes days later. But by building robust relational safety, we allow for the early admission of those errors. A small 5-minute fix on a Tuesday directly prevents a massive operational failure on a Friday. It's a real game changer.
And of course, when those problems do surface, we desperately need the permission to ask for help. We have to completely reframe collaboration and tackle the massive psychological barrier that gets in its way. I mean, why do people fear asking for help? mostly because they're terrified of being seen as incompetent. We have to shatter that myth right now. Seeking help is never incompetence. It's actually a demonstration of high-level situational awareness. Recognizing your own limits and pulling in the exact right expertise is an exercise in true agency, in highly intelligent resource allocation. It is literally pure systems thinking in action.
Ultimately, continuous evolution isn't about the absence of mistakes, it's about the presence of an expectation of repair. Let's be real, relational ruptures will occur. You might snap at a colleague during a stressful deadline, or maybe fail to deliver on a critical promise. What really matters is that when impact occurs, we address it professionally. And a professional repair doesn't sound like making excuses or shifting the blame. It sounds like owning the impact, saying something like, I see how my reaction disrupted the meeting, and I am committed to handling that stress differently next time. We recognize, we own, and we repair the impact to maintain the absolute integrity of our human relations.
All of this culminates in a really vital organizational equation. Trust culture equals trustworthiness multiplied by repeated experience. We simply cannot demand that people trust us. Trust isn't magically built in some one-off corporate retreat or an annual workshop. It's built in the mundane, repeated behaviors of everyday work. Does your team experience safety when they speak up on a random Tuesday morning? Do they actually see leadership admit a mistake during a routine Thursday sync? We have to exercise our agency to actively construct that culture, repeatedly behaving in ways that make trusting us a completely reasonable response. Trust is an active construction, never a passive entitlement.
So, I want to leave you with this profound reflection to chew on. What repeatedly happens around me that makes trust more or less reasonable? Really think about that for a second. As you step back into your workspace tomorrow morning, I challenge you to audit your own environment. Observe those unwritten rules, notice the silences in meetings, and watch the way mistakes are handled. Consider how your own agency shapes that answer, and how you can begin to cultivate true excellence and robust relational safety in your own space. Thanks for joining me for this explainer, and here's to building better cultures.